Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Given the recent testimony from military leaders stating that we were overly optimistic about the capacity of the Afghan military to fight the Taliban, or that we didn't quite assess properly that once our logistics was no longer there to support them, once our air support wasn't there, once our contractors weren't there, that they didn't have the confidence to fight against the Taliban. Nor did we fully recognize that many of the Afghan military, when given the option of putting down your weapons or dying, they wanted to put down their weapons. And we now know that's largely because they didn't have faith in the government in Afghanistan, that the corruption there was too significant, and that they didn't want to die or see their families die to fight for that particular government. Do we run the risk of not understanding or being overly optimistic about other training missions around the world? And if so, where? And what recommendations do you have for changes to our strategy of training partner forces to counter violent extremist groups? And to further amplify Senator King's question, it seems that we were not thoughtful enough about the culture in which we were trying to instill our democratic values, to the extent that we didn't have the appropriate or the knowledge of what would actually happen.
Senator, I think you pointed a number of key issues, but also I would add to that the fact that the soldiers had not been paid for 6 to 8 months is quite important. I mean, they literally had serious grievances, that what was meant to be for their salaries was being hoarded by military leaders, civilians that have been put in charge of the military, or generals by the government in Kabul. There was a tremendous amount of disgruntlement. They did not look at the Kabul government as a political leadership that they would respect or that can keep the Afghan together. And also that at a critical point, the Taliban began negotiating with the tribal leaders of the tribes that these soldiers came from. And if there's not going to be a government in Kabul, there were all these kinds of tribal deals that protection would be given to a particular region or a particular tribe or a particular province if the soldiers laid down their weapons. So it was not so much about them not being willing to die, is that essentially the Afghan military began to dissolve along Afghan lines, along the lines of tribal conversations, etc. And I think what we ought to learn is that we cannot lead a military only on military matters and not have a say on whether the soldiers are getting paid. We cannot lead a military on military matters when we don't have a say on who their commanders are, or if the president of Afghanistan decides to put some political appointee in charge of operations. So there was a discrepancy between treating Afghanistan as a sovereign state when in essence we were the military and we were not in control of every aspect of the military operation.
Do you therefore not say that one of the original sins then was not including the Afghan government in the negotiations in Doha?
Yes, I think that was a big problem because we delegitimized the Afghan government, not only in the mind of Afghans, but everybody else around the Middle East. I know that countries were. This is a sovereign country that is our ally, except when we went to the negotiating table, and we also did not bring the Afghan security forces as an independent military combatant force that was doing the fighting to the ceasefire negotiations. So we basically chopped them off at the legs. We sent a signal that we were recognizing only the Taliban as our interlocutor in Afghanistan. And I think American withdrawal from Afghanistan and its regional reverberations started with the Doha Agreement, not in the summer. I think it was clear that we were leaving the country to the Taliban. That's when Iranians, Chinese, Russians, everybody started diplomatic initiative with the Taliban because they saw that basically they were coming.
In the summer of 2020?
No, before that, Senator, when the Doha Agreement was being negotiated, the understanding was that the United States is negotiating its exit with only one political force called the Taliban. So sooner or later, these are masters of Kabul. There won't be a government. The Afghan government doesn't matter. If the Afghan government doesn't matter to the United States, it doesn't matter to anybody else either.
So therefore, failure was baked in the cake because of the negotiations.
Well, the negotiations brought us to the summer. I mean, all the essence of it, from the ceasefire, from troop numbers, from the date of the exit, and essentially from who literally would be deciding the fate of Afghanistan, was baked into the negotiations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Gillibrand. Senator Tillis, please.